Chapter 2. The woman from the bone. The first bloodline, Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, as told by Samson. I told you before, Adam was whole, yet not complete. I have known this paradox in my own flesh, to be mighty, to be set apart, to walk among men as one marked by the hand of God, and still to feel a hollowness the victories cannot fill. The garden was Adam's kingdom. Every tree bent beneath fruit for him. Every stream poured water for him. The lion lay in his shadow without fear, and the falcon stooped to his arm without bridle or tether. Yet none of these were like him. None looked into his eyes and saw the same flame. I have fought side by side with men in battle. The clash of steel, the blood in the dust, the cry of victory. But when the night came and the fires burned low, there were times I knew none of them could bear what I bore. Adam's loneliness was like that, only deeper. The one who made him saw it, and what the Almighty sees, he answers. Though his answers are rarely what we expect and often come with weight we do not yet understand. It happened at the close of the day, when the shadows ran long and the air cooled with the breath of the evening. Adam had worked in the garden, not in toil, but in the care of a king tending his own lands. He had spoken to the deer, run his hands over the mane of the stallion, watched the hawk carve its path through the sky. But that emptiness in him was still there, quiet but unrelenting. The voice came to him, not from the sky this time, but near, almost at his ear. It is not good for the man to be alone. The words settled on the air like the weight of a promise. Adam looked around as though expecting to see what the words already declared, but there was nothing yet. The voice spoke again. I will make a helper suitable for him. Helper. To our ears, that word may sound small, but I tell you, I have learned the truth in my own life. The greatest strength a man can have is the one who stands beside him, not behind him. Without such a presence, a man can be strong in arm and weak in soul. The Almighty caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. This was no ordinary rest. It was the silence before the dawn, the stillness before the first strike of the war drum. Adam's breathing slowed, his hands unclenched, his eyes bright with the day's light, closed as though he had returned to the dust from which he came. I tell you, I have slept the sleep of exhaustion after battle. But this was not that. This was the sleep that comes when the Maker walks in the secret places, where no eye may pry. And then I saw it. The hand of the Almighty reached into the man, not into his mind or heart, but into his very frame. From his side, he drew out a rib, a thing small and curved, yet within it lay the code of the man's very being. I have seen men carved from cedar and shaped from stone, but here the substance of the man was used to fashion another. The rib was placed upon the ground, and in the hands of the Creator it grew, lengthened, widened, took on flesh. The curves of it were not those of a man's body, but of something new, something meant to complement, to reflect, to complete. And where the man's form was built for the long road and the lifted weights, hers was formed with the gentleness of a river's bend and the strength of a tree's deep root. Her hair was like the dark earth after rain. Her eyes deep pools that caught the light and gave it back as something softer, warmer. Her hands, oh her hands, could cradle or craft, comfort or command. I watched as the breath entered her, just as it had entered him. She drew in that first air, her chest rising, her eyes opening, and in those eyes, I saw knowledge already. Not the forbidden knowledge of the tree, but the knowledge of presence, of being seen. The Almighty brought her to the man. Adam woke as she stood before him. I have seen warriors see their wives after years of absence. The shock, the relief, the flood of recognition. Adam had never seen her before. Yet when his eyes found hers, it was as if he had always known she was missing, and now the world had been made whole. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, he said. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. He said it not as a claim of ownership, but as a recognition of unity. Two parts of one whole now working together. And here is something you must understand. The first covenant between man and woman was not made in war or wealth, but in the recognition that one without the other is not truly complete. The Almighty himself declared it. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one flesh. In that moment, there was no shame between them. No covering was needed. They stood naked, not only in body, but in soul. Nothing hidden, nothing twisted. And I tell you, such a state is the rarest thing in all the history of men. But mark me, even the purest bonds can be tested. The moment the two stood together, the eyes of something else were upon them. The garden was not empty of watchers. Not all who move in its shade are friends. I will not yet name it. That shadow that slid between the trees, that gaze fixed upon the woman with the patience of a predator. But I saw it. It waited. It measured. It planned. And I, Samson, know the look of an enemy who does not strike at once. The deadliest foes do not come crashing through the gates. They wait until the feast is laid and the wine is poured. Then they slip a hand to the hilt of the hidden blade. The man and the woman walked the garden paths together. They learned each other's voices, each other's silences. They shared the fruit of the trees, all but one. And though they passed that one often, his presence began to press on them in ways they did not yet name. Have you ever walked past something forbidden so many times that its shape begins to etch itself into your mind? The fruit skin caught the light in a way no other did. The leaves around it seemed to stir even when the air was still. The tree stood not as a warning, but as an invitation waiting to be answered. The woman's eyes lingered. The man noticed. He said nothing. Silence can be as dangerous as speech. And so the garden, once without shadow, now had the seed of a coming storm. I have stood on the edge of such storm before, in Gaza, in Timnah, and I know the feel of the air before the strike. But the strike had not yet come, not yet. Before the shadow would speak, before the fruit would be taken, before the exile would begin, there was still a season of peace. And that, my listener, is the most dangerous season of all, for it lulls the heart into thinking the war will never come. The war would come. It always does. And when it did, the bond between the man and the woman would be tested in ways neither could have imagined. But that is for another chapter.